Jai Hind everyone, welcome back to the Joe Squad. हमारे previous episode की तरह keep appreciating us and इसलिए please subscribe before we dive into this video. So we'll start off with the new week, new day of episode 7 of What's Up in the Week. Let's start with October 19th. The shortest good to know news line in facts. Air pollution in Delhi is about 8 times the safe limit prescribed by the WHO. Modi to visit Russia next week to take part in the BRICS summit. The PM will visit Russia on October 22nd to 23rd. Go to highlights. Yeah. This also expected to hold bilateral meetings with his counterparts from BRICS member countries and invited leaders on sidelines. Member countries have been pushing for greater use of national currencies for trade among themselves while ruling out the possibility of a common BRICS currency. Basically, they want the greater use of national currencies for trade amongst themselves while there was a long thing going, long agenda that they wanted to create a central currency for all countries, but obviously no country wanted any part in that, called the BRICS currency. House panel to deliberate on India's readiness to deal with non-kinetic warfare. Indian Armed Forces preparedness to deal with hybrid warfare is one of the 17 subjects that the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Defense has narrowed down for deliberations for the year. The recent pager blast in Lebanon is example of non-kinetic warfare. The recent pager blasts that happened in Lebanon, if you guys don't know about it, it's very important as to a very as to a new type of warfare called hybrid warfare, where what is kinetic weapons? Kinetic weapons are basically something like bullets, missiles that use some sort of kinetic energy, explosions and this and that. So this pager blast was a form of non-kinetic warfare. It involves electronic warfare, cyber warfare, cyber information, psychological and economic warfare. The panel will also review indigenous defense production, resettlement policies, and healthcare facilities. Israel versus the UN. India's stand must keep in mind the UN's importance in global order. GE Marine engines to power Navy's missile vessels. General Electric announced that LM-250 Marine engines have been chosen to power Navy's next generation missiles, NGMV, being built by Cochin Shipyard Limited. 6 LM-2500 marine gas turbine engine kits will be delivered by the GE Aerospace for assembly and test by HAL. NGMV is a new design that can reach speeds up to 35 knots and carry impressive array of anti-surface weapons. We'll take a glance at the sports news. With an eye on hosting the Olympics in 2036, the Union Sports Ministry is attempting to formulate a national sports governance bill, basically to strengthen the sports ecosystem with a self-regulatory mechanism. Now we move on to October 20th. Vijay Kishore Rahatkar has been appointed as the 9th chairperson of the NCW, National Commission for Women. Vijay Kishore Rahatkar as the 9th chairperson. For defense exam, this is important. President Draupadi Murmu concludes first visit to three African countries, Algeria, Mauritania, and Malawi. The GOM on GST rate rationalization decides to lower tax rates on 20 lakh packaged drinking water bottles, bicycles, and exercise notebooks to 5%, but suggested raising taxes on high-end wrist watches and shoes. LG clears resolution urging center to restore statehood. J&K LG Manoj Sinha has cleared a resolution passed by the Omar Abdullah cabinet urging center to restore statehood to the Union Territory. Mr. Abdullah will be proceeding to Delhi to meet the Prime Minister soon in this regard. 6 times NC MLA Mubarak Gul took oath as the pro tem speaker of J&K Assembly. India to seek certification from WHO for eliminating Kala Azar. India could be at the threshold of eliminating Kala Azar as a public health problem, with the nation having managed to keep the number of cases under 1 in 10,000 people for 2 consecutive years as needed by WHO parameters for elimination certificate. It is the second deadliest parasitic disease after malaria in India. If India can maintain the declining trend of for another year, it will become eligible for the certificate. So all you guys, you should know, Kala Azar, India is working towards to eliminate it and get a certificate from the WHO. What are the stress factors for Indian Railways? This is very important. Peacekeepers under attack. Established by the 1978 UN mandate, the peacekeeping troops are today caught between the Israeli army and Hezbollah militants in southern Lebanon. One thing that you should know, the India is not part. India has not sent troops to Israel or to the Middle East as part of the UNIFIL. That we covered in the previous episode. That's a very important point as to why it is not sent. Again, as I've said before, India's take on the Israel-Hamas conflict is something that will come up in your GD, that will come up in your, that might even come up in your lecturate, and even for your written exams. So please keep yourself updated on that. India to host Asian Women's Handball Championship. All right, October 21st. 7 civilians, a local doctor, and 6 workers from outside the Union Territory were killed in a militant attack at a construction site in Kashmir. Prime Minister inaugurates 3 airports across the nation: Sirguja in Chhattisgarh, Rewa in Madhya Pradesh, and Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh. So 3 new airports have been commissioned. So this is pretty big news for the aviation industry. Odisha braces for cyclone Dana's likely arrival on Thursday. IMD forecasted wind speeds to reach 100 to 120 kilometers. Odisha government has decided to deploy disaster response forces in the coastal districts. Deep sea fishing has been halted. All right. On climate finances to on climate finance to developing nations. Why are developing countries more vulnerable to climate change? How does the United States Framework Convention on Climate Change define finance? Why have the figures mentioned in the OECD report have been called into questions? So this seems like a very interesting article to read. All these articles, for your information, are in the link in description. So please click on them. Quad group of countries take part in back-to-back naval war games. Quad nations held back-to-back naval war games, deepening interoperability and honing, in particular, their submarine warfare skills. Exercise Malabar concluded off the coast of Vizag. Earlier, they were a part of the multilateral exercise Kakadu, hosted by the Royal Australian Navy from September 9th to September 20th. This is very important. As you guys know, हमेशा कुछ ना कुछ exercise के ऊपर आता ही है, especially if it's multilateral exercise. Kakadu was the name, hosted by the Royal Australian Navy. All right. Any other important point of the coast of Vizag? Yes, Malabar. All right. Exercise Malabar was held from October 8th to October 18th with harbor phase in Vizag and the sea phase in the Bay of Bengal. All right. Malabar exercise is one of the most important exercises held by the Quad nations. Ritvik Arjun pair wins Almaty Open Crown. Awesome. October 22nd. The short is good to know. India receives nearly 200 hoax bomb calls so far this month, taking the authorities by storm. India's GDP is projected to grow 6.8% in the second quarter of 24 to 25, marginally higher than 6.7% in the first quarter. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced for a $400 million aid package for Ukraine. Okay, $400 million aid package has been sent to Ukraine, right? Maldives president has taken necessary steps to introduce India's Unified Payments Interface or UPI. India, if for those who don't know, India has helped Maldives as a country to set up UPI to go cashless because of certain economic concerns that are happening in the country. India's China deal on easing LAC tensions. India and China have reached an agreement on the patrolling arrangements and the resolution of the military standoff at the LAC. This includes the remaining friction points at Demchok and Depsang, as we covered in the previous episode also. The agreement on patrolling allows the militaries their normal patrolling routes as they were before 2020. China has not yet commented on the border agreement. CAQM invokes GRAP Stage 2 measures as air quality worsens. The Commission for Air Quality Management ordered the implementation of Stage 2 emergency measures under the Graded Response Action Plan (GRAP) to curb the Delhi's pollution. These restrictions will affect the entire capital and NCR districts of Haryana, UP, and Rajasthan. The curbs include a ban on the use of coal and firewood, including tandoors at hotels, restaurants, as well as diesel generator sets. Culture and society. Court verdict on citizenship law for Assam helps avoid fresh problems. Then we have the World Cup final. Which World Cup are we talking about here? India's premier curve archer, archery World Cup. Deepika Kumari won her fifth silver medal at the World Cup final after losing the summit clash 0-6 to China's Li Jiaman. All right. So this is important, Deepika Kumari. Then we have maiden professional title for Dakshineshwar. Dakshineshwar Suresh beat Luca Pau of Britain in the final of ITF men's tennis tournament. All right, in the US. Hockey is set to be axed from 2026 Commonwealth Games. What? Hockey is set to be axed from the 2026 Commonwealth Games as the host city of Glasgow looks to cut costs. Several media reports were stated, but both by the International Hockey Federation. Wow, I mean, this is a big blow, especially to India, because hockey is one game that we're really really good at. So this is a very unfortunate thing that has been happening. Damn. October 23rd, 2024. China too confirms reaching an agreement with India to end the 4-year military standoff in eastern Ladakh. IMF maintained its June growth rate projects for India in its latest World Economic Outlook at 7% in the current fiscal year and 6.5% in the next fiscal year. World output to grow at 3.2%. Modi meets Putin, offers all help to end conflict. He took part in the meeting soon after reaching Kazan in the 16th BRICS summit. He later met Iranian president and called for the de-escalation of tensions in West Asia. The two sides also discussed the early release of Indian nationals who had ended up fighting for the Russian military on the Ukraine front. All right. The two sides will hold the 25th session of the India-Russia Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Technical and Cultural Cooperation in November in New Delhi. India will soon open two new consultates in Kazan and Yekaterinburg. All right. Awesome. The world needs blue helmets. Who acts as blue helmet? Right. If you don't know who blue helmets are, they're referring to the peacekeepers. Police promise security to non-local workers in J&K. The killing of 7 civilians, including a doctor and 6 other workers by militants, has sent shockwaves among non-locals working in Kashmir. J&K LG underlined the need for securing vital infra projects across J&K. During the operation by J&K's police special cell, counterintelligence Kashmir, a recruitment module of the newly formed terrorist organization Tariq Labbaik Ya Muslim was uncovered. This is a new terrorist organization that has come to light. On Section 6A of the Citizenship Act, India-Pakistan renew pact on Kartarpur corridor. Both agreed to renew their agreement for another 5 years to operate the Kartarpur corridor to facilitate pilgrims from India to visit the Kartarpur Sahib Gurudwara. Even though New Delhi was unable to convince Pakistan to drop the service fee of $20 that it levies per pilgrim. All right. India's fourth nuclear submarine launched with advanced arms. The fourth nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine, SSBN, referred to as the S4, was launched last week into the water. It is bigger and more capable than the first INS Arihant. All right. There are only 2 operational SSBNs that India has, that is INS Arihant S2 and INS Arighat S3. Third SSBN INS Aridhman is under sea trial. So this is very important. What is an SSBN? SSBN is a ballistic missile submarine. S2 is armed with K5 SLBMs. S4 is armed with K4 SLBMs. All right. Navy has set up 2 task forces to develop niche technologies. Navy has been very active in the last week, I see. The 2 task forces headed by Rear Admirals are for imbibing and inducting the niche technologies. They are in addition to the Navy's Technology Development Accelerator Cell, TDAC. They are looking for at fuses, radars, quantum computing, interface devices, electronic and weapon technology. They'll work in the smaller areas but with quicker turnaround times. India and Singapore to explore joint development, production of equipment for armed forces. They agreed to extend the existing bilateral agreement on joint military training and army for the next 5 years. Also eyeing at co-development and co-production of defense equipment. The two nations elevated their bilateral relationship to comprehensive strategic partnership recently. All right. October 24th, 2024. Short is good to know. Modi and Xi meet for the first time in 5 years on the sidelines of the BRICS summit. The Panchayati Raj Ministry, in collaboration with the IMD, will launch a new initiative to provide Gram Panchayats with daily weather forecasting and provision. BRICS meeting in Kazan. India favored greater financial integration amongst the member countries of the BRICS group. The summit blamed Israel for unprecedented escalation of violence. The Indian UPI system and its importance were also discussed. Trade in local currencies and smooth border payments were also discussed. Basically, the Indian UPI system, trade in local currencies, and smooth cross-border payments were also discussed. The 16th BRICS summit, this is important, was attended for first time by the leaderships of new members: Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, and Iran. So this is very important. Who are all the new additions? Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, and Iran. So this is important. 2 years after the launch, Delhi government signs MOU with the Education Ministry to implement Prime Minister Shri scheme. Delhi has now come on board the PM Shri Prime Minister Prime Minister Schools for Rising India scheme. The scheme was to be implemented in all states over 5 years at the cost of INR 27,360 crore. It proposes to convert more than 14,500 schools into exemplar institutions. The center contributes 60% and the state contributes 40%. So we had covered this, I think, in the first episode, Delhi coming on board the PM Shri, apart from Punjab, which was the first state that had been part of it. The Manipur crisis, the issue for managing diversity. Cyber fraud losses could amount to 0.7% of the GDP. Indians are likely to lose over INR 1.2 lakh crore over the next year to cyber fraud, showing a projection made by the Indian Cyber Crime Coordination Center, I4C, which runs under the Home Ministry. Mule bank accounts are one of the significant contributors to the online financial scams. Most scams have origin in India, and there are domestically run scams too. There are compounds identified in the Southeast Asia. All right. India close to finalizing industry carbon targets ahead of the COP meet. In the run up to the 29th edition of the Conference of Parties COP in Baku, Azerbaijan, 29th edition of the COP. India is at an advanced stage in deciding the CO2 emissions intensity targets for select industries. Companies have to ensure that their CO2 emissions intensity are within the specific limit, or they must buy credits from organizations that have surplus credits. Every ton of CO2 saved over and above the target is worth one credit. As per Bureau of Energy Efficiency, India is obliged to launch its compliance in market and the financial year 2025 to 2026. All right. October 25th, 2024. India and China have begun disengaging from Depsang and Demchok, the two friction points of the 2020 standoff along the LSE, patrolling to resume post disengagement. Justice Sanjeev Khanna has been appointed as the 51st Chief Justice of India. Justice Sanjeev Khanna, with effect from 11th November. Cabinet approved INR 1,000 crore venture capital fund to support firms in the space tech domain. Fund is set up under Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center and select approximately 40 firms. Punjab and Haryana see dip in farm fires since 2021. UP witnesses upstick this year. Incidents of stubble burning have come down over the years in the two states. They have dropped to close by 50% in Punjab and almost two-thirds in Haryana. It's a great news. There are discussions on changing the office timings for both central and Delhi government offices to reduce the number of vehicles on city roads. The Gaza war and the global south interventions. All right. Wrestling. So this is the last slide. We'll go over this before we end. For wrestling, citing government interference, the Wrestling Federation of India (WFI) on Thursday withdrew Indian wrestlers from the upcoming World Championship in Tirana, Albania, which is very sad again. तो आज की वीडियो में बस इतना ही. आपसे हम दोबारा कनेक्ट होंगे. Till then, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, Telegram, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, and Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Thank you.